On today's show, the latest Lauri Markkanen trade rumors and speculation. Why are the Jazz willing to move on from their 27-year-old All-Star? Who are the leading contenders to land Lauri in the Markkanen sweepstakes, if you will? And what does a proper trade return look like for Markkanen? It's all coming up on today's Locked On NBA.
You are Locked On NBA, your daily NBA podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up and welcome to another edition of Locked On NBA, the biggest stories with the local experts. I'm your host, Jackson Gatlin, also host of Locked On Rockets right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Now, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Look, I love sports. I love them so much. I never really want them to stop, right? But when you got playoffs and stuff winding down, and then you get fewer and fewer games, and the sports maybe aren't sportsing the way you want them to. Look, FanDuel lets you keep the sports going whenever you want. All you have to do is open the app and dream up bets anytime that you're in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. Right now, you can head over to FanDuel.com and take a look at the outright betting favorites to win the title this upcoming NBA season. The Boston Celtics favorites to repeat at plus 300. Then in second place, you got the OKC Thunder at plus 750, and holding down third place, the Denver Nuggets at plus 850, as well as the Philadelphia 76ers. So for all those odds and so much more, head on over to FanDuel.com and start making the most out of your summer. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. Joining us now is the host of Locked On Jazz, David Locke, who you can track down wherever you listen to your podcasts, or on YouTube, just search Locked On Jazz. Now, David, one of the biggest names remaining kind of in the rumor mill that's, on a few different teams' radars out there is Lauri Markkanen. And we're going to get into some of the specifics, the speculation here, what a potential trade return would look like for the Jazz if they ultimately deal Markkanen. But let's start with why the desire to potentially move from what appears to be a 27-year-old all-star who's had a really strong, career with the Jazz so far. Why move on from him at this stage?
So I'm going to quibble with just one of your words, which is desire.
Okay.
If there was a desire to move Lauri Markkanen would be moved. I think they've had, I had someone in the NBA tell me that the Jazz have Wilt Chamberlain-esque something or others for bypassing some of the option and deals they've been offered so far. So I think if the desire was to trade Lauri Markkanen would be traded. If the desire is to see what the market might yield for your best player, and as you said, the best player available, and really seemingly the only player available that is garnering interest, right? Brandon Ingram, Trae Young probably are both available, but neither of them seem to be moving the meter for anyone else. So the one player, because of his style of play, that makes him completely adaptable to the way anyone plays, right? You could put him on Houston, San Antonio, Golden State, any team you name. Trae Young, you got to kind of build your team around Trae Young. Brandon Ingram, I'm not sure he actually fits on every team perfectly, but Lauri does. And so you have the best available player who's awesome and fits into just about every team. And, as somebody else said to me, Danny Ainge is known for fishing exhibitions, and Danny Ainge is clearly throwing it out there and finding out how big a fish he might catch.
And that seems like a worthwhile approach in theory until you turn around and, is there any worry in potentially pissing off your best player if you're actively shopping him in trade rumors?
Well, again, I think the Jazz would quibble with a word you used.
Shopping.
Or actively.
Actively.
Like,
okay.
Are they having conversations with Golden State Warriors? Pretty clearly they are. Are the Golden State Warriors willing to give up whatever the Jazz deem is the right price tag for Lauri Markkanen? Clearly not. Or the deal, again, would be done. I think the moment you know whether there's a problem in the relationship will be August. Now I'm getting confused whether it's the 6th or the 9th, but that's Lauri's extension date. And on that day, the Jazz can use their cap space, give Lauri an extension, sign him up. Lauri, then the interesting one is that if Lauri waits 1 day to sign it, his 6-month window by which he can be traded after you sign an extension, you can't be moved for 6 months, would fall a day after the trade deadline. So the Jazz can offer, Lauri sits on it for a day or two and then signs it, and Lauri actually can't be traded until basically after the trade deadline of the next window of possible trades. So what this creates is what Danny Ainge thrives on, which is a false deadline, but it's actually a real deadline. So on August 3rd and 4th and 5th, the Golden State Warriors have to have meetings that say, hey, Steph's 35. Are we really going to not let Steph have a chance to win it so that we can keep Podziemski or Kuminga for the next 5 years? Is that really what matters to us? The Houston Rockets, who I think have plans on trying to go get some big name players to add to their, maybe Lauri Markkanen's that big name player, and suddenly the Rockets circle around, or maybe San Antonio, who shows some signs with Chris Paul and some of Harrison Barnes of wanting to win more quickly than maybe are going to suddenly turn around and August 5th come to Danny Ainge with something. But there is an interesting deadline looming here, which is if the Jazz sign Lauri an extension and he waits a day, he is not eligible to be traded at the deadline.
I mean, Danny Ainge is very clearly putting on a masterclass and creating a bidding war for a player. Absolutely. It does feel like right now the Warriors are the name that are consistently mentioned, and maybe that's by necessity on their behalf, because obviously you don't want to waste the final years of Steph Curry's prime. You want to give him a chance to maybe win another title in Golden State. As it stands right now, David, when you're looking at a potential trade return from the Warriors, what feels like kind of the hang-up right now? What would be an adequate return, or the return you're thinking that Danny Ainge is potentially sitting on, waiting for the Warriors to say, we're going all in, we want Markkanen, here you go?
Let me make sure we all remember one thing. The only name we heard around Donovan Mitchell was the Knicks. And then he got traded to Cleveland. So who knows? But I think you're probably talking, well, it depends. You've got 3 little cachets you're grabbing from. So first round picks, the Warriors basically can offer 3. It's hard for them to do the 4th because of some protections and a pick they have traded down the road. So it's pick swaps, picks, and what combination of Podziemski, Kuminga, and Moody, which all 3 of them, by the way, equal Lauri's salary. If it's only 2 of them, you're probably Kayvon Looney probably has to come over in the deal to get the dollars to work. So it's just a combination of, are the Warriors unwilling to move Podziemski and Kuminga? And then probably no deal gets done. If the Warriors suddenly are willing to move Moody, Podziemski, 3 first-round picks and 2 pick swaps, do you make that deal?
Starts getting a little bit tricky when you start thinking about kind of the direction of the Jazz organizationally too, because if you do hold on to Lauri Markkanen, right, if he stays in a Jazz jersey for the rest of this season, then you're not going to have the option to, I guess, bottom out as easily as one would hope a team in the Jazz position would want to do, to be able to have a chance at the Cooper Flag sweepstakes, all that stuff with this upcoming NBA draft. Does that factor into the equation at all here? Is obviously, not even is Lauri a player worth that max extension? He's clearly worth that dollar figure, but do you want to tie yourself down financially to that guy, 27 years old, when you're so far away from what feels like being in that contention window yet again?
I think you cover the Rockets. I think there's probably some similarities here that you've felt as well. So you're 2 years into drafting and 2 free agencies since you've rebuilt your team. And you're probably not sure right now what pieces you have. Like, how good is Keontae George? Certainly don't know how good Cody Williams is going to be. I think if you go back to the Rockets, and maybe even still today, I don't know if we know how good Jabari Smith is or how good Jalen Green is. I still think there's some questions after the success when Alfred Şengün got hurt of whether or not there's actually something about Alfred Şengün's game that is so ball dominant that maybe it actually doesn't work as despite great numbers, right? You don't know what you have on the Thompson. Like, you just don't know. And there could be, I guess, at some point, a feeling from the Jazz as they look, oh, gosh, we're 2 years into this. We may not have any piece. That's, to win, you need a top 10, a top 20, a top 50. We may not have a piece that easily projects to being a top 10 or top 20, and maybe not many that project to be top 50. Well, the only way we're getting a top 10 or top 20 is through the draft, and you've got to bottom out to do that.
Now, you did mention a few of those young names the Jazz do have on board. We were both there in Las Vegas. We got a chance to see some of these prospects playing right in front of us. Who was the standout?
You were the first person I saw when I got to Vegas.
I know, it was fantastic. It was perfect timing. It was kismet.
My head was spinning. Then presidential candidate Joe Biden had caused me great problems by landing in Las Vegas for his last ever fundraiser.
Now it's all Jover. So give
nice.
Me, so who in your eyes really stood out, really shined while you got a chance to see them play in person at Las Vegas Summer League?
I think they might have got something in Cody Williams. It's deep inside. Like, there's a lot that has to be, worked on and developed, but just some of the explosiveness, one leg jumping, frankly, long stride, one leg jumping, which sounds weird, but if you actually watch most college players come to the NBA, they make these big long strides and then they can't get off the ground because the game's so fast for him. He showed more ball handling skills than I think I'd seen out of him in Colorado. His footwork on a shot needs help, but there's a lot of things that need help. But I think the basic skills of a 6'8", 7'1" wingspan with a quick first step and explosive move to the rack is pretty special. And, Isaiah Collier showed some better vision. I think people thought Filipowski's pretty skilled, but I think the story was Cody Williams.
Will the Jazz ultimately move on from Lauri Markkanen? If they do, what kind of return will they receive? You're going to have us covered for all of that and so much more over at Locked On Jazz. David, thanks for stopping by Locked On NBA with me.
How much you giving me for Lauri Markkanen?